Hello friends, this is Roshni. In this video, we are going to see about the client-server programming concept in Python. It is the socket programming. So first of all, let us see some important concepts about this networking, that is client-server programming. First of all, if you see here, this is a small picture demonstrating what is socket, what is port, and what is client server. So in the network, every systems are connected to each other. There may be clients and there may be servers, and each and every system in the network is identified by its IP address. That is a unique address. Like we have home address, that is uniquely identified. No, same way each and every system in the network has a unique IP address, and this IP address is of this form. If it is IP4, then this is of this form, and each D represents the digit. But it is very difficult to remember these numbers, like 196.86.71.4. So these numbers are very difficult to remember. So instead of remembering this IP numbers, it can be given some name that is called as IP name. Say for example, Google have an IP address, but that IP address, if we want to remember, then it is very difficult. So that we are using its IP name, that is google.com. So same way, every system connected to the network has an IP address to uniquely identify it in the network. Then in that computer or that system may have so many services running in it. So each and every services in the system can be identified by its port number. Then what is a socket? It is a communication link. It can be within a process or between the process in a system or between client and server. So it is a communication link, so which we can able to communicate between the client and the server. And we know what is a server. Server is a program which always look for a request from the client, and the client, when it make a request, the server will be replying back to the client. So this are some of the basic information. And then inside the socket in Python, we have a socket module, and this socket module have some important two functions called get host name and get host by name, by getting its IP name as an input. Let us see some examples so that we will understand what is this two functions doing in the socket module. So here if you see, so first we have to import this module. Then if you use get host name, it will give us the host name of the particular computer or the system which we are running. And when this host name is given as an input to get host by name, it will give the IP address. So here normally for any system, for any standalone system, the IP, the host name will be localhost, and it host IP address is 127.0.0.1. And now let us see this with an example. Now for the first example in this video, I am going to demonstrate a small example in client server just to check the login ID, like username and the password is correct. So we are going to communicate the username and password from the client to the server. So server is going to check if the username and password is correct. The server is going to reply back it is successfully logged in, and otherwise it will say is try again. So in this example we will see this simple program. So in the next video, next example, we will see a small chat program between client and server. So now in this Python, I am going to create a Python file first, and let me name it as server file. And this in this file we will write the code for server, and we'll create one more file, Python file for client. So we are going to communicate between this server and this client using this socket. So now let us start a server. So what are the things we have to do here is, first we have to import this socket module. That is very important. We have to import the socket module. The next thing, this is the server, right? So here we have to create a server socket. Remember, so in the server we have to create a server socket. Already we know socket means it is a communication link. So in the server we have to create server socket. So let us name it as SC, server socket, SS. So to which we are going to assign the socket object. So we are going to instantiate the socket object by socket dot, from this socket we are going to use the socket constructor, and we have instantiated this object. So this is the first step. And the next step is, to this object we have to bind, because it is a server, and we have to say what is the IP address, and also we have to say what is the port number to which this server socket is going to attached with or bind with. So we have to say ss.bind, and first this two input should be given as a tuple, as one set. So inside the outer parenthesis of function, inside we have to give the IP address and the port number inside this as a single tuple. So here we will say it is as localhost. So we know that already we saw every standalone system have an IP name as localhost. So we are not connecting this to any network or any other external system. So we are working in the current my standalone computer. So I have given it as localhost as my IP name. The next thing is, we have to give the port number. So we know that each and every services is identified by the port number. So till 1024 we should not use the port number, because it is already reserved for so many things. Okay, so it is better to use a port number above that. So here we are going to use the port number, say 5005, something like that. So after that we can give some numbers. So then the numbers range from like 56635, I think is. So next, this is the second step. So first we have to create the server socket. Next we have to bind the server socket object with whom do we want to connect, which means to the server socket object we have given the IP address and the port number. Then the next thing is, we have to, because it is a server, no? Server means already we discussed it is a program, always listen for some client. So we are going to say how many client this server can attach simultaneously. So we can say some number, say 3 or 4, or we can say 4. So at a time, this means that at a time this server is going to handle 4 clients simultaneously. If any other request, if the fifth request from a client came, it will decline it, because we have given at a time simultaneously it is going to handle 4 clients. So these are the 3 steps we have to do when you connect it, connect the client server using the server socket. So these are the 3 steps you have to give. So here in the socket object, here also you can say what is the IP format and what is the networking protocol you are going to use. Here we are not going to say. So it will be taking the default specification. Is it an IP4? Here you can say IP4I, IP6, TCP protocol or UDP protocol, all these things. So here we are not going to specify any arguments. So these are the 3 basic lines to do it in the server. So the next thing is, So as it is a server, it will be always listening to any clients. It will check whether any client is making any request to this server. So we have to check it. So we have a function called ss.accept. So this function is going to return two outputs. What are they is it will return the client socket. Also it will return the address of the client. So these are the two things written by this function accept. So this is server socket created, binded with the address and the port number, and it is saying 4 clients are going to be handled simultaneously. After that, it is going to accept the request from the client. And once it is accepting, it has two outputs. One is client socket. So the client also have a socket and its address. So now once the socket is created, here we can print it here as socket created. And here we can say print, we'll say the client address is, we can say the client address to which this server is attached to is now present in this variable. So we are printing it. So done. So now we are going to get the username and the password from the client. We have to check whether the username and the password received from the client is correct or not. So we are going to do it continuously. So to do it continuously, we are going to use a while loop and without a condition. So it is always going to be true. Now it has to receive the data from the client. So I want user name. So I have to receive the data from the client socket, right? So here we have to say client socket dot receive, and we have to say the byte size. It is gonna be 1024, and then we have to decode the output. Then only we can able to see it properly. So using the client socket, we are going to receive the input in the byte size is 1024. It should be like that. Then we are going to decode the input received. And also we want the password. We'll say the password is, again we have to receive the data from the client socket, and the function is receive, and we have to say the byte size. Then the input is going to be decoded. Now the two inputs from the client is ready. That is the username and the password is ready. Now the data which we have received will be in the byte format. So if you want to do some comparison with the string, we have to do the type conversion. So now we'll see if we'll say we are going to convert the username and the password into a string representation. So we will do the string conversion. So str of username, and we'll check if it is equal to we'll check username as apple. Okay, then we'll say str of the password. If it is equal to we'll say mango. So we have just said the username should be apple, and the password which I'm going to receive should be like mango. If so, then I have to send a reply to the client, right? So I have to send, right? Using how we can send it? Using the client socket. So I have to say cs.send. What I have to send? I have to send this some data, login successful, something I can send. So the login successful is a string. I can send it only as a byte format. So for that we have to use a function called bytes, There I have to say what is the data to be sent. So login successful. Then after that, so in which format we have to send it, we have to specify. So I'm saying as I'm going to send it in ASCII format. So this is a string. I cannot send it as a string, so I have to convert into byte. So cs.send function help us to send, but the data should be in the byte format. So using byte, I'm converting this. Also the format is ASCII format, right? So else I'm going to reply back as, we'll say cs dot the same thing, we'll say try again. Okay, so this is what, that's all. And after doing everything, we have to close the connection. That is a good practice. Which one we have to close? We have to close this client socket. So we will use close off. So this is what the code of server side. So first, this is the important thing in the server side. We have to create the server socket, bind it with the addresses and port number, then say how many clients gonna be handled simultaneously. Then we are going to listen, listen to the client. Then we are going to get the client socket and the address. Then using this client socket, we are going to receive the input and also we are going to send the output. So now we will now do the same thing in the client side also. So here also the first thing is we have to import this socket. Then first thing, there we first created the server socket. So here we have to create the client socket. We'll name it as CS. Then we have to instantiate with the socket object. Same thing. Here we have to say cs dot, there we used cs, here we have used bind and listen and accept. Here we have to say connect, right? So server will be always listening to the client. Then the client will always make requests to the server. So the client have to connect to the server. So to which server it has to connect, that again we have to give as a single tuple, and here the same thing we have to give. So this is very important because this client is going to connect to this server. So the same information only we are going to send it. So the local address, the IP address and the port number. So we should not change this port number because this client is going to connect to this same server. That is why we have given it. So now we have connected to the server, right? So now after that what we have to do is we have to now send the username and the password to the server just for the verification. So again we'll say while true. Now we have to get the username and the password from the user. So we'll say username equal to, we will get it as an input from the user. We'll say enter the user name. And again we want the password also, no? So we'll get that also. So we know how to get the input from the user using input function. We have to get it. Enter the password. So now these two inputs are got from the user, right? Now we will send it. So how to send it? Here to send we have the client socket which is connected to the server. So we'll say cs dot send. Already we know how to send it. First we have to say we have to send it as a byte and then the message. So we have to say username, that is the message we have to say, and we have to say in what format we have to say, send it in ASCII format. So same thing, again we have to send it, send the password. So here we are going to send the password. So first we got the username from the user, then we are going to send it using client socket object cs.send, using converted into bytes, and we are sending because this is will be in the string format. No, same way we are getting the password which is in string format, so that is converted to bytes using bytes function. Then we are sending it. After sending it, we have to receive the like login successful or try again message from the user. So how to receive the message? We'll say using the same server client socket, we have to use receive. Now we have to say what is the size, and then we have to say decode. So this we are going to print it. So the status of the username and the password we receive is sent to the server, and the status of this username and the password we are going to receive from the server, and we are going to print it. Finally, after doing, we have to close this object client socket. So hope you have understand this. So now first we will run this server. Always first we have to run the server. So first, after creating the socket, it is showing socket created. After running the server, then we have to run the client. We are going to run the client, and in the client we have said enter the username. So now here we can see after this the client is connected to the server. The client address is localhost. No, that is what where we running, and this is what the port number sent by the client. This is the number automatically generated by it, and it is sending to the server. So now in the client it is asking enter the username. So here username, here we have given username should be apple and password should be mango. So we'll say apple, and the password we'll say as mango. If so, it is saying login successful. So this two message we got from the user is sent to the server, and the server is receiving here, and if it is this both are correct, it is sending login successful. So now let us give some wrong password, wrong username and wrong password. So it is getting, we are getting it this try again. So again if you give correctly, it will tell us login successful. So login successful. So in the server we are not doing anything, but server is going to check it. So the data, username and the password we receive from the client is given to the server, and the server is verifying the data, and this message is written back to the client, and the client is printing the status of try again or login successful in the client side. So this is a very simple example of using socket in the client and server programming. So in the next example, in the next video, we are going to see an interesting chat application between the server and the client using socket programming in Python. Thank you for listening. Thank you.